I recorded an album and I played all the instruments on it when I was like 16 or 17 and put that out when I was 18. But then I'm like, oh, I don't really have like a visual way of expressing how in the studio we did this, because in the studio, you know, I'd lay down the drum part, I'd do the bass part, I'd do the guitar part. And I was like, how can you like visually represent the building of a track, you know? And so that's kind of what led me to want to start live looping. And I think it is kind of a cool way to just show, you hear one part, you hear the next part, you hear the next part, and it kind of all builds, and you're like, oh, okay, now this is like a more full sound. And then with the mashups, I kind of just, I think what it was my friend was, I was rehearsing for my live show, and my friend was like, oh, what if you played this like I was doing a cover of a song, and he's like, oh, what if you played this like Radiohead made it, you know, or something like that. And so that idea kind of just got in my head where I was like, oh, what if you like took this song but played it like this person had made it. And so that's sort of where that inspiration came from. And I even kind of take that concept and apply it in my original music as well, where like if I'm writing a song, I'm like, oh, this sounds a little too this, like what would this person do? And then kind of like something that's totally opposite from, like say I'm doing like something very acoustic, and then I'm like, oh, like, well, what would this electronic band do that would kind of give it like a new feel, you know? Or I'm being kind of vague, but
no, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. One of my general like beliefs is that it's important to kind of try things in a different way each time you do it. And so each time I write a song, I'm like, what's a way that I've never written a song before, you know? So that time I wrote How Do You What You Want, I'm like, oh, I've never really started with a drum beat before. But I'll start with maybe I'll make a vocal pad, or I'll make a beat on my computer, or I'll make a little piano thing, or even start with a lyric, or start with a melody, or, you know, just like kind of come at it at any different angle to have to avoid getting into some kind of pattern, you know.
Do you pretty much have the song orchestrated in your head before you sit down to put the instruments to it? Have you already got the lyrics pretty much all thought out and a melodic line?
It depends. I mean, that would be ideal for me. That's like, I think, how the best ones come out, but some of them are really kind of a struggle, and I'm like puzzle piecing it together, you know? Like I'll have a full track and I'm like, okay, now I need to write a song to it. But sometimes I'll have a full song and I'm like, okay, now I need to make a track for it. So it can come together in any different way.
But you don't sit at the piano and traditionally write in the melody and then go ahead and try and put the other instruments into it?
I've done that too. Like I'll write the full song on piano and then have a voice memo of it or something, and then just go, and sometimes those I kind of produce it a couple different ways to see what I like the most, and then or at least what I'm working on now. I mean, most of the stuff that I've released I have other producers involved in, and then the stuff that I'm working on now I'm kind of experimenting more with producing it myself.
Do you look back at tracks you've done and say, well, if I did that again I might do it a little differently?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think when I listen to like the recordings I made when I was 16, I'm like, oh, like I wouldn't do any of it the same probably at this point, because I've just learned so much. But at the same time, it's like I only knew what I knew then. And at the time, completing that album and getting that out there was a really big accomplishment for me. And so even though I might not like resonate with the music on it anymore, I still view it as something, like I wouldn't really do anything different, because I'm like, oh, it's like just what I did then, you know?
No. Most drummers I talk to are pretty critical about their playing. Obviously, after you do, you know, a looping session where you're playing everything, you can't bring the bass player in and say, let's try that again. But do you often go back and redo parts of the songs that you do after you hear them?
Well, with the live looping in the videos, it's just that one take. So if I want it to be different, I'll just do another take. So, you know, some of those looping videos will take up to 20 times for me to get them right. You know, I'll go in and listen, I'll be like, oh, like, I have to do that again because the guitar is like buzzing or whatever. But with recordings, you know, I'll do it as many times until it's right.
And how do you feel if you're playing in a band, which I've often seen you being the singer with the band playing behind you, but playing drums in a band, how that differs from doing it when you're looping? How do you feel? You've got the click track you've got to deal with. You've got the other instruments that you're listening to.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a beauty in both. Like, I really love playing with people and, like, you know, no click, no tracks, just like whoever's in the room expressing themselves together. But what I do like about the looping is that I can really kind of arrange the song how I want it to be, and as long as I kind of nail the parts when I perform it or when I put it in a video, then it's kind of this like perfect arc that I want it to be. You know, it's exactly how I want it to be, and it's all predetermined. And so there's something that's kind of exciting about that as well. But there isn't the spontaneity that comes with playing with people. You know.